host, and where we have the right guest for the right audience here on KPRL, the right choice. In, once again, our continuing effort to bring you as many candidates as possible, some of which have responded, others have not. We are trying to bring in those that have responded and report on their campaign agenda and the issues. So joining me right now is Chris Mitchum, who is running for Congress against Lois Capps. Chris, good afternoon. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon, Dan. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, I'm glad that you're here because this is one of the races in the state of California that I think many people are paying attention to, and certainly I hope it's garnering some national attention because Lois Capps has been in office for quite some time, and you're making the charge against her. And there are a lot of issues right now. So let's talk about some of the more important ones. One of the ones that you talk about on your site is the debt. Chris, we've got a serious issue with the debt rising to $17 trillion, and quite possibly before BHO leaves office, it could be as high as $19 trillion. What is the solution to bringing this down and stopping the bleeding?
Well, let me kind of, thumbnail what's happened with the debt since Lois Capps has been in office first. When she took office back in '98, our national debt was just over $5 trillion. Now, a trillion, so people can appreciate how big this number is. A trillion seconds is 32,000 years. That's how big this number is. 10 years later, when Obama was running, they hammered President Bush that he had increased the debt by $3 trillion. It was up to a little over $8 trillion. They said it was going to fall on the shoulders of our grandchildren. Here we are, 6 years after that. It has more than doubled. We're approaching 18 trillion, and some are saying that it's going to be 20 trillion by the time Obama gets out of office. And it's already on the shoulders of our children. I talk to people all the time. My own son, I used to tell a joke about there are two terrible times in a parent's life. One is when their kids are old enough to leave home, and the other is when they come back. But that's no longer funny because my own son, about a year ago, he was at I think he's still there, at a startup software company working. He had salary plus commission, and he wasn't making commission yet. He moved back in with me for about 3 months. He's on his feet. He's paying his own rent now. But I hear this more and more from people that their kids are. I talked to somebody, have two students, a daughter and a son, who have graduated from college. The girl is a chemist, couldn't find a job. She's working at a veterinary hospital, and the son couldn't find a job anywhere. He's living at home. And this is what's happening to our children. There was a survey done not long ago about people who, in the 2010 census, said they were in the middle class. Just 4 short years later, 20% of them feel they've dropped out of the middle class. And the middle class is the nesting place for the American dream. The belief of since the Pilgrims first came here, they came here looking for liberty and the opportunity to succeed. And the biggest danger of losing the middle class, we get into a two-class system of the have and have-nots. We're looking at a repeat of the French Revolution. This is serious stuff. What's happening. And the debt is kind of the cornerstone, the hallmark of putting us into this position.
The debt itself being a severe issue, so is student debt, and the loans that students are making, they're finding that they're not capable of paying them back, and part of the reason is they haven't been able to secure a good paying job, a startup job, just as you talk about with your son. Is it the responsibility of the government to relieve those loans of students?
Well, this gets into a kind of a very complex issue. It's not a one silver bullet solution. I cannot imagine how depressing it would be to graduate from college, not be able to find a job, and have $40,000, $60,000 in student loan debt. Somebody told me that the tuition per year at Harvard is $72,000. Now, one of the interesting things is that every time the government opens up and increases what student loans are going to be, tuition goes up, which would indicate that colleges and universities recognize the fact that they're going to get that money from the government. And then it's up to the kid to have to pay it back. But they're going to get that money. So I think we need to start looking at college and universities to have them justify what their tuition is. I can't imagine, $72,000 a year, you could have private tutors from professors for less than that for the year. So, I think we need to look at these universities, and before they qualify for receiving student loans, you need to justify what their expenses are and what their tuition is. We also have the problem that here's the government basically printing money. They're getting money at almost no cost to them. And they're turning around and charging students as much as 6.5% for a student loan. I mean, if you're going to give them a student loan, give it to them at cost. Don't give it to them at 6.5%. And then someone suggested to me the possibility, they looked at what we're spending overseas. We're basically paying for the military of the European Common Market. Let them support their own military. Let's take $10 billion a year, put it into a fund to start paying down the debt. I mean, this is money that's already spent. We're not taking it from, out of the general fund and using, something that could be paying down the debt. We're taking money that's already spent, and let's start helping these kids pay down the debt. There was a statistic that came out not long ago. It's something like 31% of the people who still have student loans are over 65 years old. They've been paying back student debt their entire life. This is crazy.
Chris, do you think that perhaps there ought to be some legislation in terms of how particularly state-run universities increase their tuition based on the increase in terms of student loans so that it doesn't occur? Do you think there should be some regulations?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the fact that there's this direct correlation that as student loans increase, tuition goes up. I mean, somebody's doing something that's not right there, and these kids are having to pay for it. And like I said, you have to be paying this back all your life, and the student loan is not forgivable. You declare bankruptcy, they still come after you, and they'll come after you like the IRS. They'll garnish your wages. I hear radio economy shows, talk shows. And people call up and they'll say, I still owe $100,000 in student loans. Do you think I should sell my house to pay it off? This is nuts.
It's dangerous when you look at the number of student loans that are out there that are not being repaid too as well. In terms of the trickle down, in terms of the debt continuing to rise as it has, Chris, the thing that's on the minds of most people, particularly here in the state of California, but pretty much across the country, is what I call the wet situation. And that means water, energy, and taxes. Here in the state of California, and in many of the other surrounding states in the west here, we have a water issue, and there are some water issues in other parts of the country as well, too. Energy, without energy, we can't move forward in terms of independence. It is a restriction on businesses as well, and then of course the taxes that are being imposed. Do you believe that we should be looking at each one of these areas to help our economy?
Absolutely, and I think what is good for the nation is good for the state. And let's talk about energy first. The energy. There's an article in the LA Times recently that said that California energy costs overall are 50% higher than the national average. Now, I think that's a little bit high, but I've seen more articles saying that it's 15% higher, but still it's higher than anywhere else in the nation. So we need to address that. The way we address that is to start developing our natural resources and getting the cost of energy down. We have the corporate taxes. We have the highest corporate taxes in the world. We need to cut those down to start bringing companies back. If we drop our energy costs down, and we could do this in 6 to 10 years with our own gas and oil production, we drop our energy costs down to where they are the cheapest in the world and not some of the most expensive. Companies will actually come back and start doing their manufacturing again in the United States if you give them a decent corporate tax as well. So you bring those companies back. Now you're creating real jobs, manufacturing jobs. And we're bringing business back into which will help the economy. And the water issue, there was a Government Accounting Office report done in 2003, and this specifically addressed the drought situation in California because everybody knows that it's cyclic and it was going to be coming back again. They gave very specific things to do to alleviate the pain and suffering from a severe drought in California. Lois Capps did none of those, and she had the information since 2003.
We have got to take a break. We're visiting with Chris Mitchum, running for Congress against Lois Capps. We're talking about the issues, one of which is energy. When we come back, we're going to talk with Chris about the Keystone XL pipeline. We'll talk a little about the fracking and drilling for energy in some of the states that are doing it, and just exactly what it means to the country for energy independence. Be right back.
Ace Auto Care in Atascadero, the best price and service on brakes, tires, smog checks, oil changes, and more. Ace Auto Care. All your vehicle needs, everything you want.
This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Pat O'Neill. Secret Service Director Julia Pearson resigns amid a recent White House security breach. This following heavy criticism from members of Congress.
There has to be an independent investigation as to what is going on at the Secret Service.
House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi says the protection of the president must be flawless. House Speaker John Boehner also wants a top-to-bottom review.
Fox News Radio's Jared Halpern in Washington. Accused White House fence jumper Omar Gonzalez, meanwhile, has pleaded not guilty to charges that he ran into the presidential mansion and was carrying a knife. Health officials looking for a dozen or more people who may have had close contact with the man now being treated for the Ebola virus in Dallas. Governor Rick Perry says the state's well equipped to handle the situation.
Texas is one of only 13 states certified by the CDC to conduct diagnostic Ebola testing.
3 members of the ambulance crew that brought in the patient are among those being monitored. This is a Fox News Alert.
With home invasions on the rise, having a shotgun at home is great protection. You and your family need the security afforded by owning a shotgun, handgun, or rifle. Right now, Atascadero Firearms is having a blowout sale on overstock shotguns. Don't wait, stock is limited. Since 2008, Atascadero Firearms has been saving you money and providing the best selection on firearms. Call 460-9453. Open Monday through Saturday at 8850 Morrow Road, Atascadero.
The UPS store in the Albertson Shopping Center on Niblick Road now has a new owner, longtime North County resident Janet Young. Janet and her family will be happy to extend the same great service as you've always received at their other locations. Janet and her daughter Cindy Smith are getting printing back online, along with all the other packing and shipping, mailbox services, and notary. Well, too many others to mention. Come in and meet the new crew at the UPS store in the Albertson Shopping Center on Niblick Road.
The sound-off lines are open at 238-5775. 238-KPRL. You know the drill. The North County's listening to you on Sound Off.
Welcome back. My guest is Chris Mitchum, running for Congress. You can link to his website, Mitchum for Congress, right off of our website and our Facebook page. In case you can't do that, it is Mitchum for Congress. Chris, we're talking about the water, energy, and taxes. In terms of the energy, it has been said that we are about to pass just about every country there is in terms of oil production in the world. We could also be doing the same thing as far as natural gas is concerned and some of the other oil products that we sorely need to make our energy independence and also at the same time provide for some national security. Lois Capps has said that in terms of the Keystone Pipeline, that she can't vote for it simply because we don't have all the facts. Well, it has been studied and the results have come out repeatedly that there's not going to be any environmental intrusion. There's not going to be any concerns about the Keystone Pipeline, but yet she continues to base her decision on the fact that something could happen. If you are elected, would you vote for the Keystone Pipeline?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the advantages of the Keystone Pipeline, besides bringing oil down from Canada to where we're up and running, is we have the oil up in North Dakota being produced. Right now they're shipping it out by train, which is 10 times, 1,000 times more hazardous than a pipeline. The pipeline runs close enough to North Dakota that they can tap into that pipeline and ship their oil out by pipeline rather than by train. And just environmentally, it makes sense. But the thing is going to become virtually unneeded if we develop our own natural resources. Some of the spin-offs of developing our own natural resources, besides dropping down, let's start with being energy independent, so we're no longer intimidated by OPEC and Venezuela and other countries that supply oil. But once we're self-sufficient, we can start exporting gas and oil. That will lower our trade deficit, which is considerable. We'll be able to sell to the European common market natural gas. In 2000, their natural gas consumption from Russia was 48%. They managed to have that down to 20% now, but they can't lower it anymore because there's no other sellers. If we sell natural gas to the European common market, we'll close out Russia, and that is basically the only economy they have. The Russian economy will implode. Two-thirds of their economy is owned by the government. They're businesses owned by the government, which are very inefficient. So once we cut off their natural gas sales to the European common market, they won't have an economy anymore. So we'll have that as a benefit. Besides the huge number of jobs we'll have be creating just developing it, we'll also be able to bring, as we talked earlier, about bringing industry back into the United States with low energy costs. We have low energy costs. Our gas is going to drop down to below $2 a gallon again, which will cut trucking costs, which will cut costs of goods being sold. It will lower the cost of living because goods will be less expensive, because shipping them will be less expensive, and producing them will be less expensive. With all these jobs we're creating, it will take people off of welfare, give them hope for the future again, instead of just hoping for that government check next month. They can actually have hope for their future and building a better future for their family.
When you look at the jobs that have been created in the states that are doing the natural gas exploration through fracking and oil drilling, such as North Dakota
and Midland, Texas,
and you look at the tax revenue, the unemployment in North Dakota is 3.8%, and when you look at the tax revenue that is collected because of the increase in jobs and earnings, it makes sense that we would agree to this.
Absolutely. And we can get into a whole discussion about Agenda 21 and this whole sort of one world, design that this far left ideologue utopians want. But they want to close off which you're seeing right now up in San Luis Obispo County. They want to close off private property ownership. They're going after water rights to people who have their own wells. They want to stifle individual development and growth in small business, and they want to pull everybody into the cities in these huge conglomerate housing, have everybody taking public transportation or riding a bicycle. They want to basically get rid of cars.
Well, it's all about control. You and I both know that. It isn't really about the issue itself. It's about control. One of the things, as far as the energy aspect is concerned, when you look at the opportunities that exist, and when we talk about the Keystone Pipeline, one of the best examples is the Alaskan Pipeline. Since its construction and operation, there has not been one environmental issue. In fact, they find out that the caribou bear like to hibernate underneath it because of the warmth, and the amount of oil that has been transported has been nothing but a boom, and it pays back to every resident in the state of Alaska a portion of the profits.
Yeah, I think the individual check right now is somewhere around $600. But yeah, the whole annual development of oil there. You look at that park, where they want to develop the oil is these flat lands. The environmentalists will show you pictures of the park and beautiful mountains and streams and everything. Where they want to develop the oil is 0.1% of the land space. It is flat lands where nothing is growing, and it's something like 110 miles from existing pipelines, which is all the pipe they'd have to lay to transfer all the oil into the mainstream pipelines to get it down to refineries.
Well, we need to, continue our energy independence. There's no question about it, and I know that you're siding with that. In terms of taxes itself, we have, as the country, some of the highest federal taxes on corporations there are, which is causing a lot of them to do these inversions and moving their companies offshore to other locations and not bringing the revenue back here. What will you do in terms of any of the votes that take place? So how will you work with your Republican brethren, should you be successful, in lowering the capital gains tax and the corporate tax?
Well, I would definitely like to lower both of those. With state taxes involved in some of our states, like California, the corporate tax comes out to about 37%, which is outrageous, absolutely outrageous. No wonder companies are leaving. But we need to slash those down. I'd also like to get rid of the death tax for family members, to have somebody spend their entire life building an estate for their family and have the government come in and take a huge chunk of it for themselves. That money, the taxes have already been paid on that money. So we need to get rid of the death tax. There are a number of taxes we need to cut or eliminate.
it's unwise for the government to think, particularly the IRS, anybody that has a tremendous amount of wealth and the resources that they have, they are going to protect their inheritance taxes by making the necessary preparations. So it really applies to people in the lower strata of what we might call rich, people that are worth somewhere between $2 to $3 to $5 million, and they don't have the proper instruments. That's where the effect comes into place. Not somebody that's worth $100 million, $1 billion. It doesn't affect them.
So you're exactly right. And someone pointed out to me, they said the huge corporations, they can kind of deal with the various government regulations and the EPA regulations and all this stuff that keeps popping up, because they can hire a law firm and an accounting firm to monitor these and keep up to date with what they have to keep up to date with so that they don't get fined. I ran into a small businessman who said he received a letter. He had a $2,400 fine he had to pay for a regulation he didn't even know had gone into effect. And he doesn't have the resources to hire someone who just monitors these things. And this type of stuff is blocking business from starting and taking small businesses and putting them out of business. Yeah, the little guy is the guy getting hammered here. They're coming after the middle class.
One of the agencies that does hurt small businesses is the EPA, and I lovingly refer to it as the Environmental Prosecution Agency, because since its inception, and we can thank Richard Nixon for this, it has created some 1,000 laws that there's no way any small business could look into and find out about all of the laws that may apply to them. And we've heard many times the calling for the dissolution, the destruction of the EPA. Would you be in favor of that?
Well, I remember when I was at Paul Revere Junior High School in West LA as a kid, and we would have a smog alert day, and the smog would be so bad that you couldn't see a mountain a mile away, and the air was actually purple. And when you had a smog alert day, you could not go out at recess and play. There was no sports that afternoon, because even without doing that, you take a deep breath, and it felt like someone was stabbing you in the chest. It hurt to breathe. So the EPA has done some good things. They cleaned up the Cuyahoga River, the one that caught fire up there.
Yes.
They've done some really good things, but they have definitely overgrown what they were intended to do, and they've outgrown their purpose. So I think the EPA needs to be 10 people sitting in an office just kind of taking care of the big picture, such as, clean air and clean waterways. But there was a bill that's actually been passed in the House twice, the RAINS Act. And the RAINS Act says anything where an agency is not elected, it's appointed, like the EPA, who comes out with any sort of regulation or restriction or rule that has a fiscal impact of $100 million or more, must be approved by Congress. I would say that if they come out with any rule or regulation at all, it must be approved by Congress, because to me it just grates on the whole constitutionality of the fact that you have an organization, and you see this with the Coastal Commission here in California, these various different boards where they are appointed, they have no responsibility to the voter.
No, these are the non-governmental agencies. They are not elected bodies, but yet they're setting and making policies. You're absolutely right, Chris.
Exactly.
We have the ACPD, we have AQMD, we have the Water Resources Board. We have all of these boards that have never been appointed or never been elected, making these decisions on people that is causing them all kinds of consternation and putting roadblocks in the operation of their business.
You're exactly right, and let me jump back to 1998 when I ran for state assembly. I met a woman who lived on the coast, at a house on a bluff. She wanted to repave her driveway. When she applied for the permit to do that, the Environmental Protection Agency or some coastal commissioner, somebody jumped in there, told her she had to do an environmental study, which is going to cost her $25,000. And if that cleared, then she could go ahead and repave. This was to repave an already paved driveway, so she couldn't afford to repave her driveway. And this type of stuff is nuts. What they're doing is taking a government run by the people as set up in our Constitution and taking it totally out of our hands and making it a government run by government.
Well, the business climate has to change in this country if we're going to continue to grow our economy and create the kind of jobs that we're looking for. There's no question about it. Well, let's talk about jobs. The unemployment rate supposedly is about 6.1, but when you take into the National Labor Review Board and the number of people, 93 million people that are out of a job, not looking for work, the unemployment rate is realistically about 14%. What do you propose if you're elected that will create a better stimulus for job growth in this country?
Well, let's dispel the myth that 93 million isn't looking for work. I think they're looking for work, they just can't find it. There's another number in there that is totally off the charts, and that is something like 1.6 million seniors graduated from college nationwide this past spring. 17% found jobs. The other 83% are not counted as unemployed because they weren't employed in the first place. They were students. That's a huge number of people who are now unemployed looking for work. And they don't even make the chart because they never received unemployment insurance. They're never even counted. So I would challenge the 14% unemployment and say it's probably even higher than that.
Well, BHO has said that since his economic stimulus, they've created some 6 million jobs. A great many of them have been part-time jobs. They've been reduced
part-time, and a lot of them are public service jobs.
Yes, they are. And what we need is the ability to have private sector jobs, whether it come from large corporations or small businesses. What can we do, or what can you do as a stimulus to bring on those kinds of jobs?
Well, as I said, to me, one of the best shot in the arms is to develop our natural resources. I think to get the energy costs down, to get people working, developing the natural resources. You look at the economy, as you pointed out, the 3.8% in North Dakota unemployment. It's somewhere around that same area in Midland, Texas, even though the population is almost doubled with people coming in to go to work. We get people working and get the economy going. We need to roll back the government restrictions on small businesses starting up. And a lot of this has to be done at the state level. But we roll back that so it's easier to start a business and get people in business again. Americans are entrepreneurs. People come to this country to become entrepreneurs for the opportunity to succeed.
They do.
Chris, let them do it.
Chris, hold that thought. We've got to take a break. We're visiting with Chris Mitchum, running for Congress against Lois Capps. If you want to talk to Chris, 238-5775, 238-KPRL. Be right back.
This KPRL Fox Business News Update is brought to you by Continental Labor and Staffing Resources, leaders in staffing and safety since 1993. Go to CLSRI.com. Continental Labor and Staffing, your hometown staffing agency.
On the Fox Business Network, stocks get thrashed. All three major indices dropping more than 1% amid worries over global growth. Meanwhile, word of the first Ebola case in the U.S. may also have added to Wall Street's jitters. The Dow tumbling 237 points, the S&P down 26, the Nasdaq down 71. General Motors was a bright spot for the market, though. Shares climbing nearly 2% after the automaker detailed its financial outlook. GM expects to post improved margins by reducing material costs and launching new products. In Europe, GM planning to book a profit by 2016. The company also says it will focus on growing Cadillac and invest $14 billion in China. And Angie's List gets a good review from investors. Shares of the consumer review site soaring 19% on reports that Angie's List hired bankers to explore strategic options, including a sale. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Ashley Webster.
Cloud may be just another overused buzzword, but the cloud is an effective computing environment that can save your business time and money. Barracuda Networks is no stranger to the cloud. In fact, all of our security and storage solutions connect to the cloud for continuous updates and off-site redundancy. Barracuda's cloud also plays host to our email security, web security, file sharing, and e-signing services. We even offer solutions on Amazon's AWS and Microsoft's Azure public cloud platforms. To try any of our cloud-connected solutions free, visit barracuda.com/cloud.
This KPRL Fox Business News Update brought to you by Continental Labor and Staffing Resources, helping you grow your company one person at a time. Go to CLSRI.com. Continental Labor and Staffing, your hometown staffing agency.
This is Chas again with Dutch Window Cleaning Artists. We clean your windows the Dutch way. We are the best and most detail-oriented window cleaning service in SLO County. For all of you who live in the water-restricted areas, we bring our own water tank trailer. Whether you want us to wash your your entire house, roof, stucco, siding, or just your windows, we do not use your water. So no more excuse for having dirty windows. For all the details, go to DutchWindowCleaningArtist.com.
Hi, I'm Marika, Chaz's daughter and owner of SenCal Cleaning. We offer a detailed cleaning service for residential, commercial, construction cleanups, and move-out cleaning. Whether you have me clean your house or Chaz clean your windows, we guarantee 100% satisfaction. For more information and to set up a free estimate, check us out at sencalcleaning.com or call us at 674-7152. 674-7152. Dutch Window Cleaning Artist and SenCal Cleaning.
Remember, we clean the Dutch way, the only way.
The Sound Off lines are open at 238-5775. 238-KPRL. The North County's listening to you on Sound Off.
Welcome back. Once again, visiting with Chris Mitchum, running for Congress against lowest caps. You can link to his website right off of our website, KPRL.com, and go to the Facebook page, Mitchum for Congress. Chris, one of the best ways to kill jobs is the increase of the minimum wage. Now, there's a great deal of calling, and of course, lowest caps is behind the increase for minimum wage, particularly in the food service industry or service workers. And we both know that the minute the minimum wage goes up, jobs decline.
Yeah, well, let me point something out about Lois Capps. In her 16 years of tenure, she's taken over $11 million from unions. One of the things the minimum wage does is most public employee contracts are based on the minimum wage. You raise the minimum wage, automatically the union contract base salary goes up. And they don't tell you that. That's going to increase the cost of government to raise the minimum wage. Besides the fact that it increased the cost of small businesses, the little mom and pop places who hire a kid in college who's working his way through, someone who's looking for a little extra money to make while they're doing something. High school kids who are looking for a job, and these type of service jobs were never intended to be full-time career jobs. The purpose of the American free market society is you develop and build yourself and improve yourself. These are starting entry-level position jobs. They're not intended to be full-time jobs to support a family and buy a house. And you're absolutely right. You increase the minimum wage, we're going to lay people off. They won't hire as many full-time people, as well as the fact that your unions are going to have an increase in work. So the cost of everything is going to go up. You hear the outcry in particular. I heard one person from the food service industry. She said that I've got 4 kids to feed and raise, and I could use the $15 an hour because I'm having a hard time. Well, whose responsibility is that? Here we have what you say, a head of household with 4 kids asking for an increase in the minimum wage so she could support a family, which it was never intended for. Well, you're exactly right. Plus the fact that she's probably buying a lot of the food for those 4 kids at McDonald's, and the price is going to go up like 50%. So let's look at that end of it. It will certainly hurt the lower economic strata of the economic class. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Did you have a question for Mr. Mitchum?
Yeah, Chris, thank you for running again, and hope you're successful. There was a story, I think it was in Drudge, that I guess New Jersey raised their minimum wage, and it's had a tremendous impact on small business in the restaurant industry. I don't know if you've read that, but it might be something you might want to refer to, because that's the reality of raising minimum wage.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I have not seen that article. I'll go ahead and research it. Well, thank you very much for your call. People are attuned to this, Chris, because they know that when that happens, there is a trickle-down fallout, unintended consequences, and it will occur. One of the things since BHO has taken office, the middle-class income has dropped some $2,500.
It used to be, I think, $58,000. It's now somewhere around $54,900. So there's been a tremendous drop. Along with that is the whole entire health care issue, where there was a promise of dropping premiums by $2,500 and having better coverage, and yet we only have approximately 8 million people signed up, and that is questionable. And that doesn't include any deductibles that you may have to satisfy in the event that you are faced with some sort of medical issue. As far as the BHO care is concerned, there's been less talk about repealing it as there is that from the Republicans that it may self-implode, which is why for the last 6 months we haven't heard a lot about that. What do you think are some of the solutions for the BHO care?
Well, first of all, I think the inherent problem with Obamacare is the fact that you're taking a socialist concept of government-run health care and trying to plug it into a free market economy, which is a constitutional republic. And so what you're doing is you're taking a square peg, trying to put it into a round hole, and it is never going to fit. Obamacare would never function the way they hope it would function, because it's the wrong thing for this country. That said, Republicans were saying when they were passing Obamacare, just steamrolling it through, which I felt was unconstitutional by the way they did it, because they suspended the fact that we are a representative government, and despite polls that some showed as high as 87% of the people did not want Obamacare, they shoved it through anyway, which means they suspended representative government, which is the type of government we are supposed to have. So that said, we were saying then, Republicans were saying then, we need to have tort reform to lower the malpractice insurance, which once you get that down and get it under control so it's capped, the ability that someone is able to sue, then doctors won't have to go ahead and give you 10 tests that you don't need. We need to take down the barriers where, and if someone who leaves California and goes to Idaho, if their company doesn't have insurance in Idaho, they have to drop their insurance and reinsure. And if they have a condition that developed while they were insured before, it now becomes a pre-existing condition. So we need to take down those barriers so you can take your insurance with you if you travel. We need to, Dr. Bradley, who ran against me during the primary, this is he's become like a national expert on Obamacare and how to get rid of it. He pointed out that the people who have pre-existing conditions is about 1.7 million. We can set up a program to take care of those people without destroying the entire healthcare system of this country. We need to get people involved in their own insurance. When I was a young man and I had a family of 2 children, I'd take somebody to the doctors. We'd just find out what the diagnosis was. He'd prescribe a medicine. I'd go home. I'd get a bill. If I couldn't pay the bill that week, I'd send in something. And next week, when I got my paycheck, I'd send in something else. Sometimes it'd take 3-4 weeks before I could pay my medical bill. But there was no such thing as insurance then. And because I was involved in my own health care and my family's health care, we would discuss what the options were. And he said, the doctor would say, well, we could do this other test, but I'm pretty sure that this is what it is. And I'd recommend we just go ahead and treat this. And if in 3 days there's not a response, then we'll go ahead and look at this other thing.
And the cost for the doctor's visit was significantly less than what it is today. And certainly there isn't the burden that's placed on the doctors today in terms of collecting. They have to have a complete department just to handle the insurance itself.
Absolutely. My own father-in-law, he was a cardiologist. He just continue practice because he had to hire 2 people just to handle Medicare and Medi-Cal. And he said, to heck with it. He became a consultant. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But we need to get people back involved, because what's happened is people go in and the doctor says you have to do these 20 tests and it's going to cost $40,000. You don't care. You have a $25 copay. What do you care what the cost of medicine is? So we need to get people back involved in their own health care again. But there are very specific things we can do. We have the best medical care in the world. The problem is it's become too expensive, so we need to go back in and say why and address that problem, not turn it over to the government, which we know is pretty incompetent in doing anything right.
One of the big problems with the BHO care is the fact that you have to go through this bureaucracy before doctors can get approvals to do this and that and everything else. And now we're hearing from a guy like Zeke Emanuel, Chris, who has said that by the time you reach age 75, you just about have lived long enough and we shouldn't be doing anything for you. And he even claims that, and he was one of the authors of BHO care, that he hopes he doesn't live beyond 75. The government, in my opinion, should not be involved in determining what your life expectancy is and what your medical care is throughout your entire life.
Well, I'm going to come back to that, but let me say first, you're talking about the nearly 8 million that they've signed up. 4 million of those are people who lost their insurance, and those were not insured that were individuals. A lot of those were families and couples. So that 4 million policies that was lost, there's probably 8, 10, 15 million people who lost their insurance. They signed up 8 million, almost 8 million individuals. So the net loss is much greater than the net gain. Now, back to individuals. One is a good friend of mine, a woman named Vivian. She lives in Carpinteria, 84 years old. Last October, she got a letter from Medicare saying that starting January 1st, under her Obamacare policy, under Medicare, she would no longer get oxygen to sleep with at night. She needed oxygen to survive. After a number of phone calls, she finally got the framework that if she took a monitored test by sleeping without oxygen for 1 week, and if during that time she fell for 5 solid minutes below into the danger area, then she would qualify for getting oxygen. Her doctor said in 3 nights she'd be dead. So she's now paying for her own oxygen.
And it's some bureaucrat that is making the decision on that has no medical experience whatsoever and has no care for the patient whatsoever.
I got another call from a man in Montecito. Fortunately for him, he's fairly wealthy. He had liver cancer. He went to get to go through the framework to get a liver transplant, get on the list. They denied him. He was unqualified to get a liver transplant because under Obamacare, if your liver has expanded by 4 centimeters or more, you don't qualify. His had expanded 7 centimeters. He did his research, found that Germany. He went over there for $40,000. He had a complete workup. They found that he had cancer nowhere else in his body. For $240,000, he got a liver transplant, and he's alive today. Under Obamacare, he would be dead today.
There's no question about it. This has some serious issues.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't have that kind of money if they need medical care.
No, they don't. And even though they offer what is called the concierge plan, which is nothing more than paying cash for everything else, but you got to pay a fee to the BHO care in order to have the concierge plan. Pay for your health care services.
Yeah.
It is truly ludicrous.
Well, the whole thing's a disaster. It's a disaster.
Well, as you say, we have only 8 million signed up, and it was intended to insure those 30 million people that didn't have insurance and probably still don't have it.
They still don't have it.
And they didn't want it, yet we disrupted the whole system for a segment of society that really, truly didn't care. We're visiting with Chris Mitchum. We got to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about immigration and the Middle East crisis and the Congress's ability to declare war, because if he is elected and he's successful, he will have to participate in that. Be right back with Chris Mitchum.
Remodeling? Doing new construction? Think of Frontier Floors. Window coverings, countertops, and more. Whether it's one custom vanity countertop or a complete newly designed residential or commercial project, Frontier Floors and Window Coverings is equipped to assist you from floor to ceiling. Browse their 3,000 square foot showroom. You'll find custom countertops, hardwood flooring, ceramic, and custom tile, beautiful fabrics for window coverings, and of course, luxurious stain-resistant carpet. Since 1977, Frontier Floors has been the North County's choice for the finest in selection, quality, and service. And now they have an affordable in-house professional interior design and space planning department. Call 238-7878. Find them on the web at frontierfloors.net or visit the showroom at 830 21st Street in Paso Robles. Frontier Floors and Window Coverings. Always free estimates, and now interior design service and space planning too.
Planet Fitness is a judgment-free zone with tons of equipment, unlimited fitness training, and a no-gym intimidation atmosphere. How much do you think that all costs? Like $1 billion? $2 billion? A vault full of priceless jewels and gold-dipped gold bars? Gold-plated with extra gold? Stop guessing! You're not even close! Because from now until October 10th, you can join Planet Fitness for just $10 down and $10 a month. Can you believe that? Just $10 down and $10 a month for more fitness than you'll know what to do with, and plenty of helpful staff to let you know exactly what to do with it all. Wow, that is helpful. Actually, I wonder if they can help me with something. See, I'm trying to figure out a good way to finish this commercial and...
Say no more. Join Planet Fitness today for just $10 down and $10 a month. How is that?
Great. Anything else?
One more thing. We're not a gym. We're Planet Fitness. Home club only. Participating locations only. Planet Fitness facilities are independently owned and operated. See club for details.
When you're looking for a vehicle, isn't it nice to know you have a friend in the car business? Generation after generation, your neighbors from Arroyo Grande to King City have trusted Paso Robles Ford with their vehicle sales and service needs. Paso Robles Ford is rated so high in sales and service customer satisfaction, they've been known as the people's choice for quite some time. They're located at the corner of Highway 46 and Golden Hill Road, but you don't have to drive there to save there. Click on PasoRoblesFord.com 24/7. You can chat with a representative, search inventory, fill out a credit application, schedule service, and more. Every customer is treated like family, and every customer will pay less than retail for any new Ford, and that's a promise. Now you and your children can enjoy the same friendly and professional sales and service experience your parents and grandparents have enjoyed at Paso Robles Ford. The people's choice. Paso Robles Ford, just off Highway 46 at Golden Hill Road, and online at PasoRoblesFord.com.
Welcome back. Once again, my guest is Chris Mitchum, running for Congress. Chris, let's shift gears a little bit because immigration has not topped the list in terms of the more important things, but now because of the crisis in the Middle East with the ISIS crisis and the potential for border crossings across our southern border, including our northern border, for any possible terrorists, and the fact that Congress has the right to declare war after a president takes action for 60 days, respond to the immigration crisis as it applies to the ISIS crisis at the same time.
Well, what used to be an immigration problem with the open borders has become a security problem. So, let's look at it under those guidelines now, because it is a national security problem that we have these open borders. And as you said, not just the southern border, the northern border, and also our seacoast. We need to protect those. Here in California, you have these bonga boats coming in with tons of marijuana loaded aboard, and 10 or 12 illegals sneaking in. So we need to seal down our borders. What I would like to propose is let's take some of our Afghan and Iraq vets. They're trained in security. They're trained in fighting in case they get into a firefight with somebody coming across the border with an AK-47. And they need a job. Let's let them go and become our border guards and seal down the borders. We don't need the National Guard. We have people already trained for this stuff who are looking for work. So let's give these guys, these men and women, the job to do this. And I guarantee you they'll do a good job. So this has gone long past an immigration issue. It is needed for the illegal immigration that's taking place. But this is now a national security issue. You hear constantly about people from Jordan and Sudan and Yemen, different places coming in across our border. Why are these people coming into this country from Mexico? Why? Because they can. And who are they? We don't know who they are. So this is a serious thing, and we need to seal these borders. What's going on with ISIS right now? First of all, Obama, against the advice of the generals on the ground, he pulled out everybody, pulled out the troops. He should have left about 30,000 there to just kind of monitor things, make sure the government stayed intact and kept going in the proper direction. So he blew that. He yanked defeat from the jaws of victory. So that's the first problem. The second thing, Paula, that we have is he has been slowly dismantling our military. At the end of the Korean War, and up until recently, up until Obama's administration, we had our troops at 90% battle ready. And officers would lose their job if they didn't have their troops battle ready. And battle ready is from the time you're given the command to the time your boots on the ground shooting the gun is 30 days. Right now, we have been downgraded to, instead of 90% of our troops battle ready, 10% are battle ready. Without great jeopardy to this country, we could not put troops on the ground in Iraq if we had to right now. We just don't have the troops to do it. That's what this man has done to this country. So what he's trying to do, supply intelligence and air power and get boots on the ground from the Saudis, who most of the terrorists have been Saudis, but get boots on the ground from the Saudis and Jordanians and Kuwait and Egypt and different Arab countries that are also afraid of these people because they know that if they succeed in Iraq and Syria, that their country's probably next on the list, that they'll come in and take them. Now, where did ISIS get their weapons? We supplied them. When the rebels started their attacks in Syria, we supplied the rebels with weapons. The rebels turned out to be ISIS.
Yeah, the ones that we abandoned.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Chris, we're just about out of time. Take the last 30 seconds here and tell us again, why should people in your district vote for Chris Mitchum for Congress?
The country's been going the wrong direction for some time now, especially in the past 6 years under the guidance of Pelosi, Reid, and Obama. Lois Capps, 97% of the time she votes with Nancy Pelosi. So the 24th district has been represented by Nancy Pelosi the past 6 years. So we need to change direction. We can get the country back on track, and with voters' help, with their support, we can do this.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you very much for coming on the program and talking about your campaign for Congress. Once again, Chris Mitchum, link to his website, Mitchum for Congress, right off of our Facebook page and our website. Chris, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Coming up tomorrow.